Guys, I would like to apologize in advance. What this is likely to turn into is mainly just a bit of a ranty video because we have another pedantic and absolutely mind-blowingly, mind-numbingly ridiculous article from ESPN. We have 2025 NFL offseason grades, draft, trades, more moves by team, whatever that means, from ESPN by Seth Walder, and we have a grade for each team based on what it was that they did this off season. And the Chiefs there, you can see it on the screen now, get a B minus, which, I can understand that. If it is just the B minus involved here, I get it. Not a perfect off season, a little bit of turmoil with the free agency, I guess. Not a whole lot of home runs there. Maybe we had to trade away some player along the offensive line that was pretty popular and pretty good at his job. But overall, I think that it was a win of an off season. But we're going to see a little bit later in this video that a B minus here really is kind of the dumps. So in this article, we get biggest move, move I liked, and move I disliked. Biggest move, trading guard Joe Thuney to the Bears. Probably that's fair. If we are just talking about the sheer magnitude of the roster difference from last year to this coming season, probably the biggest move in that fashion is moving on from offensive guard Joe Thuney. But I don't think that it is the thumbprint of that move is massive. How big that move actually has to be in practice, I think, is going to possibly be de minimis because of the Chiefs getting better at left tackle, which improves the guard play, whoever is next to a better left tackle. And maybe, just maybe, Kingsley Suamataia can be better than Joe Thuney in the running game. I don't think there's any chance that he's going to be better than Joe Thuney in pass blocking, but being better than Joe Thuney in run blocking at least adds some bit of a new dimension, giving the Chiefs' offensive line an interior that is absolutely massive and just freight liners in there as run blockers. Move I liked, signing quarterback Gardner Minshew. Now, what a colossally confusing thing to say. Signing the backup quarterback to the greatest quarterback in the NFL was the move you liked. Okay, this article does specify that it's not just signings that can fall here. There's trades and there's draft picks. None of the draft picks were more impressive to Mr. Walder than signing Gardner Minshew. I don't know how to. You didn't pay attention. Move I disliked, signing offensive tackle Jalen Moore. What a weird thing to say for a team that struggled along the offensive line and at left tackle in particular. Signing a guy who did a pretty good job in his time filling in for one of the best left tackles in the NFL. The article goes on to say this: fresh off losing a Super Bowl in part because of the offensive line, because the offensive line struggled, Kansas City made the surprising choice to deal Thuney. One of its best offensive linemen. It did make some sense, though. Thuney is 32, not necessarily old, given offensive linemen can play longer than other positions, but not young, and was in the last year of his deal. The Chiefs needed to make some tough choices and opted to keep 26-year-old Trey Smith, a good guard, though not quite as good as Thuney, instead. It was a long-term decision, and the Chiefs opted to franchise tag Smith, though they had to overpay him because the price tag is based on all offensive linemen rather than only guards. In other words, Smith was paid at a tackle price. That is true. Kansas City could still work out a long-term deal with Smith before the Tuesday deadline. even if they do, I don't know that they want to work out a deal that lowers the cap hit this season, because the cap hit this season is something that the Chiefs can already absorb. They have the rest of their roster this year built around that. It is likely, in my opinion, that the Chiefs would try to make other future years lesser than this year at $23.x million. Now, having to move on from Tooney is not just about his age. Having to move on from Tooney is not just about the fact that he was in the last year of his deal. Having to move on from Tooney was also about the fact that you can only spend so much money along the line, and they wanted to get better at left tackle. Even without Tooney, the more serious question was at left tackle. Last year's mishmash of Wanye Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, DJ Humphries, and an out of position Tooney wasn't good enough. Well, technically, it was good enough. It was good enough to get them to the Super Bowl. They lost the Super Bowl in devastating fashion. Yes, that's true. That Eagles team that night would likely have beaten all other teams in the NFL, especially, I guess, what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs because of that offensive line versus the Eagles' defensive line. And the Chiefs had to address the spot. The best option was Ronnie Stanley. We're going to address this later with a little bit of help from the guys at Arrowhead Pride. But he flew off the board before free agency. Instead, the Chiefs opted for former 49ers backup Jalen Moore for $15 million per year and $21 million fully guaranteed. A risky move. Not only was Moore not a starter, to be fair, he was behind 11-time Pro Bowler Trent Williams, but when he played, our metrics were not a fan. Moore has a career 83% pass block win rate at tackle and was an 81% last season, which would have ranked third worst at the position had he qualified. But the Chiefs didn't just rely on Moore, they used the number 32 pick on Josh Simmons, who could compete for the starting job. Now, bringing in a name like Moore at left tackle should not be looked down upon. Ever. This is a guy who has proven he can play. I don't care what the ESPN metric says. There are plenty of other metrics to go on. There's the eye test as well. Jalen Moore has proven that he can play at the NFL level. Then you bring in Josh Simmons to play there as well. And guys, I don't know how much happier you could be as a Chiefs fan. On one hand, one of Moore, Simmons, or Suamataia could win the job and step up. On the other, it's more likely that tackle will be a weakness again, as most first-year tackles struggle. Somewhere, Kansas City decided on cornerback to add cornerback Christian Fulton on a $10 million per year deal. Signing Fulton to support Trent McDuffie is a good idea. As a cornerback, as cornerback play varies significantly from year to year, and Fulton performed at a high level with the Titans in 2022. Perhaps the Chiefs' best value move was signing Minshew to a one-year, $1.2 million contract. Considering how valuable a backup quarterback can be, getting Minshew, who earned $15 million last season with the Raiders, at that contract was a total bargain for a guy that you hope never sees the field. Now, this is a tidbit on this from John Dixon at Arrowhead Pride. He said, I disagree that the Baltimore Ravens left tackle Ronnie Stanley was the best man to play left tackle in Kansas City. What sense does it make to create a chunk of cap space by trading a 32-year-old guard and then use all of that space on a 31-year-old left tackle who has missed 36 games over 4 of the last 5 seasons? That's a good point from Mr. Dixon. That is a great point from Mr. Dixon. So one of the things that is oftentimes kind of maddening from the perspective of a fan, right, is that your team can't get a hole filled for several seasons, left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. But the thing is, you can't just manifest a left tackle. One has to be there in the draft, or one has to be there in free agency. You don't get to just manifest that player. So I think John Dixon is right here that Ronnie Stanley probably wasn't much better of an option than Jalen Moore. And if Jalen Moore performs up to who we think he can be in a more consistent full-time type of role, then all of a sudden you're looking at a guy who can play multiple years versus Ronnie Stanley, who's probably a 1-2 year rental. The last thing that I have to say about this, the Chiefs got a B-, like I talked about earlier, for their offseason. There were 16 teams with a B flat or better. There were at least 4 teams that I noticed with a B-. So the Chiefs basically on this scale are ranked 20th overall. If this draft means the Chiefs had a 20th ranked offseason, if retaining all of their players that are vital except for Tooney and Justin Reed means you get a B-. Guys, the Chiefs might be losing ground, but I don't see it. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.